Heyo everybody, Haku here with my review for Tower of God chapters. Okay, I'm gonna have to actually look at what they are. Chapters 543 through 546 are Season 3, episodes 126 through 129. That would be 10 Family Heads Calamity, Part 3 and 4, and Warp Part 1 and 2. And then next time I'll review the 4 parts of Lily Olb Zahard, which would lead us up to where the hiatus currently is. I've said this before, I'd love to go back and review like basically every chapter that I didn't get a chance to review. And yeah, I loved going back and going through these again because I feel like there was a lot that reading week to week, even though I talk about Tower of God a lot, even reading week to week, multiple times even, that I'd forgotten a little or that I didn't pay enough attention to the first time or didn't really notice or take perfect grasp of the first time. So I really enjoyed going back through and getting to just sort of experience it again in more detail and yeah, be able to provide this review for all of you. I got 2 pages of notes here. I have a lot to talk about when it comes to these 4 chapters, so let's just talk about them. We're going to start off talking about chapter 543. We start that one with Misheni, who comments on Traumare being there and everything, and mentions that she freed Jinsung, which was Traumare's leverage over Bomb, and also Bomb now has Traumare's weakness. So she's basically like, one thing that I think is probably Tower of God's like best long-running subplot, just the most consistent, the most, I don't know, really well written in the way it all connects together subplot that's gone on throughout all of Tower of God is Misheni's goal of fomenting war. Now, we don't know like what the real end goal is here. Does she just want to fight Zahard again, but in real life? Does she want to open the door to the next floors? What is the end goal of all this war? We don't have 100% of a grasp yet. Maybe even Misheni doesn't. Maybe the end goal is just to cause the war. But she's constantly been doing things that would sabotage both sides in a way, kind of, but also make both sides come together and fight each other more, to make the 10 families fight each other more, to make FUG seem like enough of a threat that it starts fighting instead of sitting back in the shadows. And that long-term goal has just like, all of this has been so well written. Misheni just keeps doing things and keeps doing things to make war more and more likely. Then she's surprised by the appearance of the long-haired Daejong, who comes in, and I just often use Daejong because it literally translates to like leader, but I think captain is also a good translation. But I'm just saying Daejong when it comes to the boss/captain because the translation hasn't stuck with a singular term. Sometimes they say captain, sometimes they say boss, but that's who I'm referring to. I'll probably just say all 3 every time I'm referring to it, just to be extra clear. But the Daejong says that they're also somebody who's active behind the scenes and that they want more or less the same thing. So again, so mysterious. We still don't want, or we don't know what they want, but they're so cool. I love the long hair with the scar or the red thing hanging in front of his eye. That Daejong, I love his design. So cool, so mysterious. He suggests that Misheni changed the warp location for Kuhn's group, and that it's for both their sakes. So again, we still don't know exactly why, and I really, when we come back from hiatus, I'm really curious to see. We probably won't learn for a while, but I really am looking forward to seeing what that was all about. We come back to the big stuff going on with the whole family head and everything. Yusrach is looking to take advantage of Traumare's arrogance, saying, okay, you're not taking us seriously, you're not paying attention to me, I'm going to attack you now because you're arrogant, you're not paying enough attention. We know this isn't going to work because he's a family head, and Yusracha and Yama and everyone have been notably out of their depth here. The enraged Rapid is able to defend from Yama and Jinsung from behind using some sort of spirity form thing that comes out of a crack in its back. Doom then makes it to the warp fleet and just yells for everybody to enter the warp fleet. Who cares if they know what our plan is? Because he says Traumare's not going to attack the warp fleet. If Traumare destroys the warp fleet, he's not going to be able to just jump back to his home if he needs to. He would be cutting off his own transport back to his main base, which is what Doom is bet on. And like, to me, I'm kind of like, one of the coolest, I bring it up all the times, one of the coolest applications of Shinsu and stuff that I think we ever saw in the series is in Floor of Death, when Yurik Mazano, who we know is like really, really good at compressing, he compressed, like we know he compressed the forest of Baek Ryung to bring it to the 77th floor, so we can compress an entire forest. I love that we have Yuri's group and all of them running to where Gustang is, and then somehow or another, Yurik makes it there first, and Gustang's like, oh, that's dangerous. If you mess up, you compressed space to get to me sooner. I thought that was one of the coolest things ever, that basically he compressed the space between himself and Gustang so he could basically just step there and be there like quicker by making the space smaller. It's just, that to me was one of the coolest things, where like, I think the translation called it like warping space or something like that. I thought it was so cool to see something like that. And I'm like, if Yurik can do that, Traumerei should have some kind of fast travel, right? I mean, even Andrasi has the Bong Bong, which is a pretty quick way to travel. So you would think that Traumerei's got something he can use to move quickly. But either way, I think plot-wise, this is really cool. This is really good. I like that their plan makes sense, I guess, from sort of, makes sense in a them kind of way. It would cut himself off from his main battleship. Perditi and Holan are still pursuing Jinsung. Cha, Karaka, and Dewan finally arrive, so we have a lot going on. They let sort of Jinsung's group know about what happened with the Cat Tower's destruction and the escape, and how everyone's just leaving right now. They very quickly say that Bomb uses Leviathan to stop Perseus, and Traumerei notices. Traumerei notices he's got Leviathan? That means the thing was destroyed, the big old crystal in the middle of this place, the Suspendium. So Traumerei takes notice, and it's important, like, whenever we get something like that, it's like, Traumerei will remember that, and something that's going to be important to the plot. So Traumerei reacts to that, and he tries to grab Bomb with Cobalt again. Yasracha interrupts this, but gets genjutsu'd, and like, this is such a serious, tense moment, and then we get, the frog is alive, and the frog is alive is such a funny line. I love the frog is alive so much. But it takes me out of the tense situation, out of the drama, when I read the frog is alive. So Yasracha's down to his last life. He only has like one branch of the core left down there, and Traumerei orders him to kill Yama. And it's beautiful because he actually resists. He resists him, goes to attack Traumerei, and then, gets killed. I mean, he's kind of killed. He has months to live, and I'm totally willing to buy into that because, like, people in Tower of God live like thousands of years, so it's not ridiculous for me to be like, okay, if they live thousands for years, then a mortal wound is like, oh no, I'm mortally wounded, I'm going to die in 5 months. I'm totally willing to buy that. I'm totally willing to be like, yeah, makes sense. So he takes the fatal blow there, and I love that during this, one of my favorite things, maybe even my favorite thing about this chapter specifically, I don't know, there's a lot to like about this chapter, it's a really good chapter. One of my favorite things, though, is when we get this sort of killing scene, we get a reaction shot of Calavan. Calavan, who's just been kneeling around doing fuck all. Calavan's not been doing a damn thing. We get a reaction shot of him when this happens. I think that's so important, because the whole reason Calavan wanted to go after Liboric was about Liboric throwing away his men. When Calavan, as a leader, believed the leader is meant to keep the peace, he's like extremely, would you call him lawful good? Would you call him lawful neutral? He's extremely lawful, where Calavan's like really, really upset morally about the fact that he loves and cares about his subordinates so much, and yet a leader would be willing to kill or sacrifice their own subordinates in the way that Liboric did. And then we see somebody like Traumerei, one of the 10 family heads, just killing one of their subordinates. So I love that we get a reaction shot of Calavan there. I think that's really, really important. Traumerei then releases his power, causing the calamity. During all of this, we get the happy fish, which is just hilarious and adorable, and I love it. And then we end the chapter with Traumerei being told, a call with Kirin, I'm assuming, that Gaston is at his home, at his battleship, at his floated castle, whatever you want to call it. The translation, I feel like, jumps around. I don't know exactly what to call it, but the main base of the Lopobia. So to talk about the blog, something I usually do for these reviews, when I get to the end of each chapter, I talk about the blog post from that chapter. There's, honestly, in the past, like long ago, blogs were the source of a lot of information. Now, it's really sad because Siu's going through a lot. He's been going through a lot for a while. But there's usually not too much deep stuff to talk about. One thing that's worth talking about from this chapter's blog post is that he says that we're going to be gradually entering the history between the 10 families. And I think that's really interesting. Not only a lot of people have brought up, and me included, it'd be really, really, really cool to see how the 10 family heads met, what their journey was like. But I also think it's worth talking about not just the journey, not just how they met, but it's worth talking about the thousands of years since then, the thousands of years of potential rivalry and political posturing. And we know that there's a bit of a rivalry that goes on with, say, like the Ha and the Kun and even the REA family. I think learning more about all that is really, really interesting. So learning about that history, I think, is going to be very important. Another thing here, for those of you, if I know a lot of people actually don't read the blog. So for those of you that don't read, a lot of times there are sketches, and the sketch for this week, I thought it would be important to include because Siu said, I've never drawn plainclothes Traumerei before. So he actually gives a drawing of plainclothes Traumerei. So we see what he would look like without the big family head getup. We just have regular Traumerei. So yeah, there are a lot of, if you want to go through and read the blog post, I think the wiki is a great place to do that. But they have these really nice sketches a lot of the time. I know there's a lot of really good like holiday themed ones. There's one with Rachel cosplaying Harley Quinn that I think is a really nice looking one. So yeah, there are just good sketches. So I wanted to share that one just because, I mean, hey, people are really interested in Traumerei. And I know some of you don't read the blog post, so I wanted to throw that in there. But yeah, to move on beyond that, let's start talking about chapter 544. So starting with chapter 544, we have the Highbrider has been clapped. The Highbrider's been destroyed, I guess. We have this like spiky thing getting destroyed. It doesn't look like anything on the Highbrider. I looked up a bunch about it. I know I've seen in like Dr. Bonehead's videos. I think he tried to look. He was like, is that part of the Highbrider? Have we seen that before? Maybe it's the core, something like your Sriracha's core that he got from researching the Highbrider. But it's destroyed whatever it is, so I guess the Highbrider just went out like that, eh? So Yuan Sung hears Traumerei's conversation about Gustan. That's important. Yuan Sung knows, so now we know for the future, again, this is something that I maybe overlooked a little bit, now we know for the future, with wherever Yuan Sung got warped to, he knows about the fact that Gustan was at the Lopobia battleship. So Traumerei stops his attack, and he stops it long enough because of getting this information and talking and everything. He stops his attack long enough that Bam, Jinsung, and Yama, who's carrying Yusracha's body, are able to escape. And Traumerei orders the branch leaders to capture Bam alive and then return to their home base. He's basically like, we need to get back quick, but we also, now we know Bam has Leviathan, we can't leave him. So he's like, we need to grab him and escape. He gives an order out to all the branch leaders. Yama is able to enter one of the segments, the segment with Doom, Karaka, and Cha inside of it, carrying Yusracha's body. And Bam and Jinsung then run along the warp fleet to both sort of draw attention away, but also because what Jinsung says, let's run across, find a different entrance into it, and it's not they don't have to worry about being attacked, but he basically says the same thing that Doom said, Traumerei won't attack because he'll be destroying his own escape path, which is, again, now more important than ever now that we know that Gustan is at his home base. And one thing that I got from rereading these chapters is one thing that I like is before I was always under the impression, or I was kind of putting myself under the impression that I'm like, no matter what's going on, I'm like, oh, he's such a big, cool character from the lore that Traumerei basically knows everything, that Gaston basically knows everything. But one thing that I kind of viewed with a different perspective when rereading is there's a lot that Traumerei is surprised by or doesn't know. There's a lot that Gaston is surprised by or doesn't know. And I like that. I like that character-wise, it makes the plot make a lot more sense. It makes the plot make a lot more sense that there are things that each of these family heads are caught off guard by during all of these exchanges. And I really like that, especially Gaston, who it seems like is like always in control and everything. I like that we see a little bit of like them being surprised by things. Yeah, that's something I appreciated more there. Let me figure out where in my notes I was. So yeah, they try to draw attention and stick to the warp fleet so they won't be attacked. Same deal as what Doom said. Perditi and Dobo were kept from stopping them by Karaka, who grabs Dobo, and Cha, who knocks back Perditi. Perditi notices that all the other branch leaders are, well, they're not all branch leaders, but all the other Lopobia are leaving without him, so he breaks off the pursuit. Karaka throws Cha into the segment with Bomb and Jinsung, which is really cool, really nice. And Traumerei makes it on with them. They're like, phew, good thing we escaped. And it's such a great scene where they're like, good thing we escaped. Turn around, Traumerei's just in there with them. Hey guys, what's up? I really like that one. So then Yuan Sung splits the warp fleet into 3 parts. One part has Yuan Sung, Yama, Doom, Yasracha, Karaka, and Dewan. One has Perditi, Perseus, Holing, Candide, and Meyer. And the last has Bomb, Jinsung, Cha, and Traumerei. Lafave then destroys the warp device, as was the plan before, and Bomb's segment is teleported to Lilial's ship. We don't see the other two, we just follow Bomb's. It's teleported to Lilial's ship, and that leads me to my receiver theory. So a theory that I came up with during when these chapters were coming out week to week was that the way it was explained made it seem like if it was destroyed, they could just be teleported anywhere, just randomly. So you would think that, statistically, if it was just random, they'd just be thrown out into the middle of nowhere space. But they're all 3 teleported somewhere specific. And I don't think any character was controlling that. I saw a lot of people saying, well, isn't that really too convenient that they all just happen to get teleported to somewhere that would be good for them to get teleported to? But I actually think it's different. I actually think it's like, okay, it's meant to warp, and the receiver of the warp is meant to be the Lopobia battleship. But when it's destroyed, instead of being warped to that location, I see the warp system as maybe sort of a connection of receivers, where we saw it before earlier in the Nest arc, where when they were teleporting, when they were using a warp drive to warp Lafave's bullet to kill the Windbird, they needed a receiver, and Kun used his lighthouse as a receiver, I think. So I'd like to think, receiver theory, they all got teleported to the places they got teleported to, because you can't just get teleported randomly. There has to be a receiver point. What they meant by random was that they aren't getting teleported to the spot on the receiver network that they were trying to go to, but just random whatever's closest, maybe. Just a random nearby receiver, which is why we see where they all end up, getting a bit ahead of myself, but we see where they all end up is that Yama's group, Karaka's group, Yuan Sung's group, whatever you want to call it, they end up teleported to a place where a bunch of ships from the Lopobia are picking up a load of troops for the army, and there are also a bunch of other ships warping in there. So again, it's a place where it's not just randomly out in the middle of nowhere, it's a specific place that other people are warping to, so it's connected to this sort of network of their warping. The same goes for, instead of getting sent to the Lopobia battleship, the Perditi's group gets teleported to the Ark of Knowledge, the Popodao battleship. And then we have also Bomb's group gets teleported to Lilial Zahar's ship, which is nearby. We learn later on, which isn't far from the Lopobia battleship. It's not like they got teleported really far away. They're actually close to the Lopobia battleship. So they get sent to Lilial's ship. So yeah, that would be my theory, is that it's not just random. They go to actual specific places because that's how the technology works. Um, and yeah, I guess that's where we end, is with them getting sent to Lilial's ship. So the blog potion, the blog post mentions. That's how I ended up with that. The blog post mentions that there's a lot that needs to be quote produced and conceived for the next arc or next episode, next saga, and so this is something that I've talked about before with the hiatus, and it's a good place to talk about it since we're still on hiatus, is that there's personal things affecting CU and his work, and that's a part of the reason why we went on hiatus like this. But another part of the reason is that I get from what he said when he went on hiatus, from the statement that was put out. One of the things that I get that he talks about makes it sound like they need to basically make a creative outline of the next arc. Because, I mean, you got to think, you can't just say, okay, I'll write the next chapter, and then I'll write the next chapter. You have to have a plan ahead of time. So I think they need to plan the next arc ahead of time. I think that's a part of what this hiatus is about, is that we finished the Nest arc, and we got to this point where instead of continuing to go and try to draw, try to write, try to release an entire chapter every single week, while also trying to plan out what's ahead, that's a lot of work. I think one of the reasons for this hiatus is probably that CU and CU's team needed to needed to write the story of the next arc, so that then they can come in and just do the chapters week to week once they figure out what the next arcs or what the next saga's story in an overall sense, or at least like point by point, an outline, is going to be. That's my personal thought on this hiatus. But yeah, now we'll jump into 545. So we start chapter 545 with the Lilial shower scene, and like I think, damn, Lilial just had a crazy glow up over the last time skip, right? Because I feel like before the most recent time skip, everybody was like, wow, Shiliel is like the better looking sister. Everybody liked Shiliel, but like Lilial looked so good, and the outfit she was wearing afterward looked really, really, really good. It's like, wow, Lilial's design looks really good here. I don't know if it's just the art stepping up, the way they decided to draw her, which was a little bit more fan servicey than usual, but yeah, Lilial looks way better now, I think. She mentions a lot of things that I think are important, though. She mentions that she was so rushed to return to the battleship so suddenly that she didn't get to say goodbye to her teammates. We have her on a call with Shiliel, who's with their teammates, which likely includes Maria, because they were working with her. And it made me think, I don't know, it made me think more about like how interesting a lot of these subplots are that I'm not going to talk too much about power scaling or anything, but the power scaling is kind of messed up, and so many people just want to argue about power scaling all the time, and it's kind of a problem because I am invested in this Maria subplot, this regular princess subplot that's gone on with Anak and Andrasi and the twins, and now Maria, and there's this faction war between groups of the regular princesses. I think that's really compelling. I like that. And it also goes into like the Acrafter's daughter stuff. I'm really interested in the Acrafter's daughter stuff. And in a lot of ways, you can say a lot of people think Bomb is basically 10 family head levels. So they're like, why would we care about this? We've just grown beyond it. And I think that's one of the problems, is there's so many good subplots left that we haven't explored enough. And we've just jumped way too far, way too quickly. With the power scaling, but again, I don't think it has to be that way. That's one of my biggest hopes for this next arc, is for CU to find some sort of balance when it comes to the power scaling, some sort of balance that makes things feel better than they do now. Because now, again, I can't disagree with the people who are like, Bomb is just so strong that it's like, in a way, do we care about these subplots anymore? Because I want to be able to care about them. I want to think that they mean something. So that's one thing that I hope CU really irons out, is fixing the power scaling a bit. And there's any number of ways of doing that, and it's up to CU. One way that I said that surprisingly enough, people just completely roasted me for is like, one of the ways to do it is, I don't think See You Ever should have said, like, again, I'm getting a little off base, a little off tangent here. But one of the things, I don't think CU should have said the only regulars to ever beat a ranker are Bomb or Bomber Adori. I think maybe that could be retconned to be like, well, the only ones to beat a ranking administration test ranker are those two. Because to me, it doesn't quite make logical sense. And even before, I was like, oh, a regular should never beat a ranker. And I've kind of changed because I've kind of seen a little bit how illogical that is. Because you would think, say somebody goes up the tower, they reach the top, they become a ranker. But they were like, I don't know, not to disrespect Prince, they were like the Prince of their team. They weren't the strongest member. They were kind of getting carried a bit. And even then, Prince is good. Prince is special compared to a lot of the random regular characters we've met. So you gotta think a lot of these people make it to the top. And this dude was just a random regular. He made it to the top, maybe gets a job with Sahard's army, doesn't really do much of anything. So it's like somebody like that, you would think would not be as strong as like a special regular, like an ace of a team. Like you go to the 70th floor and you have like like how we did like the top 5 D ranks or whatever back in the day. You take like the strongest teams and you take like the ace members, the top members of those teams, and you compare them to like sort of the kind of just got in as being part of a good team and hasn't really done much since rankers. It just makes sense that some regulars logically would be stronger than some rankers, like especially once you're getting into the 50s to the 70s. Like again, take what I mentioned before. Charlie's not a great example because Charlie is kind of a meh ranker, but he's not the worst. He got hired on as part of the altar. He said he was pretty good when he made it to the top. But even then, if Charlie is the level that we've seen him at and he's pretty good, then imagine the nobodies who made it to the top and became rankers. Imagine the guys like towards the bottom of the rankings. Those guys towards the bottom of the rankings, people really got upset at me for saying this, but if you were to throw in a random ranker like that who was like near the bottom of the rankings, just a random guy as part of Zahard's Empire, and have like Hatsu or Elaine beat them, I'd just be like, yeah, totally. Like, I would have no problem with that. I'd be like, yeah, makes sense. I just wouldn't have any problem with that. I think it would make sense that Elaine, who was Kaiser ruling the Name Hunt Station for 1,000 years, who was a candidate to become a princess, who's from one of the 10 families, I'd just think, oh yeah, some random no-name ranker, I would totally just buy that Elaine beats them. Same goes with Hatsu, and that's not even considering characters that are as big and famous as, say, Andrasi. Andrasi, totally, it would make sense to just be like, oh, just nobody ranker, like the guys that Pan was stacking on top of each other and sitting on, those guys, it'd make total sense if Andrasi could beat one of them. So yeah, people don't like when I said that, but I was like, that just makes total sense to me. So I don't think it's like beyond repair kind of broken. But I do think the power scaling needs to be mended a little. In order to have the story still have any kind of weight or make any kind of sense. And just talking about these subplots that I care about, like Akraptor's daughter, like Maria, just made me think of that some more, where I'm like, I really want these subplots to still have any value. We see in the needle as they're escaping, poor Sola. Poor Sola. I wonder where Namo is. Oh man. Masheni says that, we're just jumping around a bit. Masheni says that she likes the Daejong's proposal. So we don't know what that proposal is yet. We don't know what their plan is. So again, more mystery going on there. The warp coordinates are changed for Kuhn's group, which is Kuhn, Rak, Warian, Vicente White, or White with Vicente in charge. I'll probably just call him Vicente like I often called White Joaquin when he was the dominant personality. So we have Vicente there, Arya, Yul, and Kel. It's weird thinking, oh yeah, Arya's still with them. So the warp coordinates are changed with them. We see that Sophia protected the needle. White Garment Widow says that, wow, I'd probably be dead if I didn't have the shield, if I didn't have Trauma Ray's shield. And Mick Cage, who is just the biggest disappointment. I remember Dr. Bonehead, like, always forgot his name, called him like Mick Bird. Like, just the biggest disappointment. Clapped, done. Wow, what a disappointment. What a disappointment. Because here's the thing, I love Yusracha's sort of division commanders. Yeah, that's the proper term, division commanders. I love his division commanders. I love Hiracha's backstory and fight. I love Kendrick's backstory and fight. Fuchil didn't really get some big backstory, but Fuchil was a big role in what happened with the Cat Tower, being the bomb and everything, and being like, oh, he's a combination of machine and beast man, the ultimate servant or whatever. That was a really cool plot point, symbolic and everything. I love, and we still have one that's alive even. We still have Hisacha. I love Hisacha. I thought that that Hisacha's chapter where both she and Choni get backstories and they have their fight. I love it. I love that chapter. So yeah, I love all of them. I think they're all really well-written characters. So then you take Mick Cage, who is supposed to be his vice squadron commander, or squadron vice commander, his Elpathion, the Elpathion to his Caliban. And yet, we don't get a backstory. He doesn't play a big role. He does basically nothing. He like kind of MCs the Cat Tower game, but even then it doesn't really require much of an MC, so we barely see or hear from him. It is baffling. It's baffling how we got such good stories for all of Yusracha's other subordinates, and then we get to Mick Cage, does nothing, gets clapped. Weird. So that is a bit of an odd one. And then we get the ending to the Nest arc, which I love. Not the ending to the saga, that'll come next review, but the ending of the Nest arc, we get this shot of LaFave, and I love that shot. It's so good. I like it visually. I like the idea behind it where everybody else is gone now. Everybody's warped away, and all that's left is the destroyed just remnants of the Nest. The members of Zahard's army who's left, corpses floating everywhere, and then she's just standing there in the rubble after having basically sacrificed herself, staying behind so everyone else could escape, just being like, don't know where you went to, but good luck. I love it. What a perfect way to end the Nest arc. I love it so much. And a part of it goes that I love LaFave and her story so much. I thought it was really good. So, Nest arc's officially over, but the chapter isn't. Chapter continues. We see Yuhan Sung's segment, but we don't see where it went yet. The location that it went is left mysterious for now. We go to Perditi's segment, and we do see where it went. The Ark of Knowledge, which is the home base, seemingly the floating battleship, floating castle, whatever you want to call it, for the Pobedao family. And it is, this might be a big claim, because there are a lot of cool areas. It might be my favorite area in Tower of God so far. Just visually, everything we've seen of like the characters who hang out there and stuff so far within the next few chapters, and just the big shot of it looking outwardly, I'd like to know what you think. What are your favorite locations in Tower of God? I'm trying to think of other locations I really like. I mean, obviously the Hell Train's probably a good choice. Floor of Death, a lot of people might say. But I mean, that's a little bit less specific when you say the Floor of Death as a whole. But you could say like one of the cities in Floor of Death. I think that would make a lot of sense to be one of your favorites. The Cage might be some people's favorite, or the Nest. But yeah, I love visually just the Ark of Knowledge is so cool looking. I love the way it looks so much. Possibly my favorite location so far, just in terms of how cool and beautiful it looks. We have Gaston talking with Kirin. He says that the Lopobia battleship is right at the edge of his territory. And he's like, okay, what are you doing? Why are you at the edge of my territory? Get Trauma Ray out here. And he's threatening for Trauma Ray to come out. He's like, Trauma Ray needs to get out of his chair, get out here, come come talk to me face to face, or I'm going to keep destroying the place. And Gideon basically says to himself, wow, wow, we're really screwed if he finds out that Traumerei isn't even here, or if he already knows that Traumerei isn't even here. But I like the idea that Gustang doesn't know that Traumerei's not actually there, and that's part of why he's destroying the place, telling him to, hey, get out here. Kun's group gets warped to Gustang. We cut away, though. We don't get to see much of that yet. I'll get back to it later when the story gets back to it later. We see on the Ark of Knowledge a place called the Path of the Will. We see that Perditi's group is taken prisoner. They're pretending to be normal people who just happen to get stranded there. And a guy reads to them from Robinson Crusoe. And I think we've seen this guy before. So I think he's the fluffy hat guy from season 2. Again, some of you may not remember. I have some images here. So the guy that reads to him is this guy. This is the guy that we see. And in season 2, when we see Gustang's sort of ship that he goes to pick up Rachel and Yura on, and we see some of his, I guess, his reading club. We see some of the book club. One of the guys we see who seems to be like his main messenger to Chonhee is this guy. So this guy, I think this is the same guy, only 3 years later. At first, I was like, it's just the hair, under the fluffy hat, because we see in season 2 that this white thing is just a fluffy hat, that he actually has that blondish brown hair underneath. But also, one thing that I especially just noticed again while picking up these screenshots is that the guy who confronts Perditi's group or whatever has a monocle over his right eye. It's not full glasses. And this guy also has the monocle over just his right eye. So yeah, I think this is the same guy. I think the guy from season 3 on the Ark of Knowledge is the main messenger guy with the fluffy hat from season 2. He's just not wearing his travel battle fluffy hat with the bunny ears I'm now noticing get up. And he isn't carrying that weapon on his back. But I think this is the same guy. Again, let me know what you think. I could be wrong. But yeah, I've always thought from when we first saw him that was the same guy. So yeah, might be seeing somebody from season 2 there. Then we get Yura and Rachel's reintroduction for the first time in years. So hype. Just rereading through this, I was like, that's so cool. I'm so happy to see Yura and Rachel again. I know a lot of people hate them, or at least play up the hate, because it's fun to. It's fun to play up the hate. But they're compelling characters. I really like them as characters. Then we have the blog, which is the hiatus notice. And you know what? Instead of taking notes on it, because it's a bit dense, I wanted to read the hiatus notice again here with all of you. So let's just go through the hiatus notice. Again, it's still important because we're still on hiatus, at least if you're watching this as I'm making it. So to start from the beginning with it, it's always like this every time I write a hiatus notice, but I really put a lot of thoughts while writing it. Something very personal has been happening for me in the past few months, which caused me to have very bad work conditions and such. I wanted a week break and then to continue on. I tried increasing the time I put into the work, which was already at its limit. I tried to have only one purpose of working towards the deadline. However, I ran into a lot of trouble because of the guilt caused by the fact that I wasn't able to purely focus on my work as an artist, due to personal reasons. I wanted to show my readers a work that I was satisfied with. I wanted to be blunt towards the problem I was facing in life and in work, but that didn't work out the way I wanted it to. Originally, the plan was to go straight into working on the next episode as soon as I finished this episode, but I had come to a conclusion that recovering my condition back before continuing on the next episode is the better choice, even if it meant giving up on some of the works I was doing, instead of continuing on with no breaks and bad condition, presenting works that I wasn't satisfied with to my readers. I'll return after regaining some margin in my life, after finishing my preparations, looking over my past works, and some works that I had already done. I apologize for the disappointments I had brought upon the readers, and for the long hiatus. As much as you love Tower of God, I also love it too, so I'll try my absolute best to come back in better condition. Thank you for your love and attention. Which is, again, really great statement, and like I mentioned last chapter, one thing that I gather from it is, again, a big part of this is personal reasons. There's always a lot going on health-wise, personal-wise, with CU. I think with everybody in life, but CU's a creative, and it can weigh on you really hard to have a lot of that stuff going on while you're trying to create something. And I think episode, when he says planning out the next episode, just pushing on with the next episode, they often in the translation call the sagas episodes. Like, I would say, in my opinion, we have season 1, which is a saga all on its own. Then there's the Return of the Prince saga of season 2, the Workshop Battle saga of season 2, and the Hell Train saga of season 2. And I think what we just finished was the Nest saga of season 3. I think from the beginning of season 3 to where the hiatus ends is the first saga of season 3, and when we come back, we're entering a completely new saga, like what the Hell Train was, like what the Workshop Battle was, and this new saga is the Waifu Tournament saga. That's what I think. That's how I view it. So I think the translation there, it didn't mean literally like the next chapter, next episode. I think it meant they're planning out, they're using this long hiatus to look over the past story and to plan out the future entire saga that comes next. I think that's part of why this is so long. Again, personal stuff plays into it, but I don't think it's just about making the next chapter and then you can come back. I think it's the fact that they're planning things out long term ahead of time for the next saga, because it would be you got to think it would be difficult to do that while writing an entire chapter every single week. So I think they're taking the time to do that, and I really appreciate that. That is my take on the matter. That's how I see it, at least. Now then, to finish this video out, though, we have one more chapter to discuss, and I've had a lot of fun doing this. I really like just being able to being able to sit and talk with you all in depth about the story, about these chapters. I liked going down and taking my notes, just breaking things down and seeing what I could see with each and every chapter, and then getting to go through all of that with you. So yeah, thank you, and let's get into chapter 546 to finish this out. So we get a mention by Yura that Perditi's squad turned their pockets off so they can't be ID'd, and Rachel wants to ask Gastong for permission to check them out. Both from this and from things we see in the next few chapters makes it seem like Rachel has a pretty solid relationship going with Gastong. And honestly, if you're Gastong, Rachel's pretty smart. I mean, not the smartest character we've met, but pretty smart, pretty manipulative, and is an irregular technically. So Rachel, just like having Bomb on your side or as sort of a pawn in your game is important, having Rachel's a good move too. Gastong might or might not even know how good of a move he has going on right now with having Rachel as a part of his deal. So yeah, either way, we then see Akryung and 2 other teammates with them, and that led me personally into doing some research, because I was like, this might seem dumb and obvious to all of you that it's person who might be Akreptor's daughter and Michael. But for me, I wasn't sure. I was like, they kept it so vague. They just show them all cloaked up each time they show them. And I'm like, are those 2 new teammates? Are those, like, who are they? Are they teammates we already know? I wasn't 100% sure. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go back. I want to see what exactly happened the last time we saw Apple and Michael and Akreptor's, or person who might be Akreptor's daughter. And the last time we saw Michael and person who might be Akreptor's daughter, Akryung was telling them, okay, now it's time to leave. So again, that's those 2. I was like, okay, so before I thought it was vague, I thought it was like maybe those 2, but now I'm like, oh no, the 2 hooded figures there, I think are person who might be Akreptor's daughter and Michael. I think it's those 2. Just because they were with Akryung. They were with Akryung in the cage, and I thought Akryung left and we didn't see or hear from him again. I didn't remember that he was like, hey, time to leave with those 2. So yeah, okay. That would make sense then. So yeah, confirmed, I would say basically confirmed that it's those 2. And the last time we've seen Apple is really interesting. So the last time that we saw Apple was with Varagarv. In the build-up to the nest, when Varagarv was like going off to find out why he wasn't affected by Ysracha's control and to report that to Yama and everything, we see that she's with Varagarv. She's all tied up and with Varagarv. So last time we saw Apple was with Varagarv. So yeah, that would I always like bringing these things up where it's like something that I bring up a lot of times is the last place we know Angel and Elliot. Angel and Elliot, the last place we know of, they were with Paul's group. So here we have the last place we know where Apple was with Varagarv. And the last place we know where Michael and person who might be Akraptor's daughter were leaving at the behest of Akryung. So it makes sense that those two would be the ones with Akryung who join up with Rachel and Yura there. So that would make sense. Then we go over to the Gastong side of things. Kuneye thinks that he recognizes Gastong. Gastong is surprised by the ship showing up. Again, I like things being a little bit unexpected here. He's surprised by the ship, and like, it's surprising, but it doesn't make him seem dumb because of like how he reacts. He's surprised by this ship just warping in front of them, and he looks and he thinks to himself, from the design, it might be a Lopobia ship, but he thinks that it's a Zahard ship. He thinks it's one of Zahard's ships when it shows up. Then he gets a call from his people about Perditi's group. And again, his people aren't idiots. They're like, hey, some people just warped in front of us and they're hiding their identities, but we're pretty sure they're from the Lopobia family. I like that, again, we see that the Pobedao are suspicious that, yeah, they're from the Lopobia family. So then Gastong says, that means the ship that showed up must be a ship that escaped from the nest. I'm going to take it with me and leave. So he says, I'm going to take it with me and leave. And he says that he already accomplished what he planned to do today, takes the ship with him, and leaves. And when he says, I already accomplished what I set out to do today, I think what he wanted to do was deliver a message to Traumerei, because like he said last chapter, what I mentioned was that he was like, hey, the main Lopobia battleship is right on the edge of my territory. That seems fairly aggressive. That doesn't seem good when another one of the 10 families is like sort of building up their forces right on the edge of your territory. So I think what his plan, what he set out to do, because he was saying, hey, Traumerei needs to come out and talk to me or I'm going to keep destroying stuff. I think he wanted to send a message to Traumerei, hey, this aggression stuff, this ain't gonna work, this ain't gonna fly. I think he was sending the message, back off, don't encroach upon my territory. I think that's what he set out to do, and I think the reason he said he accomplished it is because he showed up, he destroyed a bunch of their ships, and then he took this escaping ship with them. He might have also captured some of the escapees, he thinks, back at the Ark of Knowledge. So that's why I think he says, I've accomplished what I set out to, because I think what he set out to do was to send a message to Traumerei, hey, if you're thinking of invading, maybe don't do that. I think that's what he was talking about. So we cut to Traumerei and his group, and Traumerei like kind of just looks around. He's like, well, I can tell that wherever we were teleported to isn't the Lopobia battleship. I can tell we're not home, but he says that he can sense the Lopobia battleship, or he says that I wanted to word this to be sure that, you know, you get that he says he's close enough to sense not just that he senses the Lopobia battleship, but that he's close enough to sense the Lopobia battleship and to sense Gastong. So wherever they are, wherever they got warped to when they go to Liliel's ship, they're not far from the Lopobia battleship. They're pretty close enough that he can sense it from there. Which again leads into more of what I was saying. They all got warped away, but it seems like they got warped away to specific locations that you think would be linked to a warp network, to like receivers or whatever, and all places that are kind of nearby, because we know that the Lopobia battleship is right on the edge of the territory, and we know that Liliel's place is close to the Lopobia battleship. We know that the armies were being gathered by the people at the place that Yama's group gets teleported to. And of course, again, the armies were being built up right at the edge of the right at the edge of the Popodao territory. I'm really trying hard not to get Popodao and Lopobia confused when I'm talking, to trying not to mess up there. So it all makes sense. They all get teleported to places that are kind of nearby one another here. They're not super far away from one another, it seems. So yeah, Tromare says here that he's like, okay, I still want to use Bomb. He says he does not want to kill Bomb. He still wants to use him. And we've learned time and time again, especially from what Yusracha says, that is what Tromare does. Tromare doesn't like to just go out and kill people. He likes to use people. He still wants to use Bomb. And he says, you know, I don't want to kill you. I want to use you, but whether I kill you or you join me, either way, I can't let you go now, because I know you have the person that I want to hide the most. So yeah, now that, again, he saw before that he had Leviathan and was like, okay, well now I can't let you go. So now he's in a situation where he's not letting Bomb go. Jinsung proposes, I'm just going to call it the waifu tournament. Jinsung proposes the waifu tournament in order to buy time. And I love Jinsung roasting Bomb here, where Bomb is like, yeah, I didn't consent to this. I don't want to get married. Why are you doing this tournament, master? Papa. And then Jinsung just says, calm down. You're a Slayer candidate for FUG. What woman in her right mind wants to be with you? And I love Jinsung just roasting Bomb there. But Jinsung also says, don't worry, I have a plan. We'll do this tournament, and the tournament's fine. So, me personally, again, I said this from the beginning, I think Jinsung's plan for this tournament, and why he's like, if we do this tournament, we're going to buy time, but it's not going to be a problem either way. I think his plan is Elaine. His plan is Elaine because we just had an arc. We just had the Nest arc that was like all about the Lopobia. And Elaine didn't do anything, and her family is so important to her story, and Elaine didn't really do anything. Didn't really get any development here, so that seems weird. But also, because, I mean, remember, she's super, super strong among regulars and even beat Andrasi in the past. But also, remember that she works for Jinsung. The reason that she went to save Bomb's group at the last station and stayed with Bomb those years is because Jinsung sort of gave her the orders, hey, go protect Bomb. And then also, another big reason, probably the biggest reason, is that, so Jinsung is like, okay, let's do this tournament, and then he's like, I have a plan, and if Elaine is the plan, then Tromare can't do anything. Let's say Elaine starts to win. It's like, if somebody from another family started to win, Tromare might try to rig the tournament or something, but Elaine's a Lopobia. So if Elaine starts winning, Tromare's not going to get involved. He's going to be like, oh yeah, Lopobia is winning. Like, he's going to be totally into it. So it's like, Tromare has no reason to complain. So I think it's perfect. And Tromare's opinion, Tromare's like, when Jinsung says the tournament thing, he's like, even better. Tromare's fully into this plan. He's like, this is even better, because now nobody can complain if we just win. Because before, imagine if Tromare actually did just recruit Bomb into the Lopobia family. And we know this conversation, we saw like this argument happen before with the 10 family heads, where some of them wanted to leave him be, just let him climb the tower on his own. Some of them wanted to straight up kill him. Some of them wanted to recruit him into their fold. He's another irregular. Like, let's count him among us. Let's protect him. Among us? Let's, sorry, damn it, I got distracted. They're like, let's just sort of count him as one of us, people from outside the tower. So imagine all this argument happens over Bomb. There's some strained relations between the 10 family heads because of this Bomb situation. And then Tromare is just like, oh yeah, he joined me. Now the Lopobia family has 2 irregulars. All the other family heads would be like, what the fuck, Tromare? You didn't tell anybody about this? You just went and recruited this guy? And now your family is the one family with 2 irregulars? Like, I don't know. Tromare, so again, Tromare, like, that would be bad, I guess. I mean, it'd be good in the sense that Tromare would have 2 irregulars, but bad in that he would piss off literally every other irregular who might team up against him. But with this, like he said, they can't complain. If they do a tournament and the Lopobia family wins fair and square, then they can't complain. Then it's like, okay, that's it then. So yeah, Charmery's fully into this plan. He says, though, he's like, I'm a busy guy. You got 1 month. We'll do the tournament in a month. Send out the invites. You know, it is what it is. Then Kirin tells Traumerei about Gaston leaving. Lilial, again, we see more of her in her outfit here, and she is just a baddie post-time skip, isn't she? Traumerei bombed Jinsung and Cha board Lilial's ship, and this is just sort of a lot of them talking, a lot of comedic moments. Lilial, Bomb, Traumerei, and Jinsung are really funny this chapter. The comedy this chapter was really good. And we end on the idea, not the idea that Lilial is just, what I get from this isn't some like villain manifesto. This is Lilial saying, I kind of feel for Lilial here. This is Lilial being like, I'm being forced into this marriage with a guy that I don't like. I'm being forced into marriage. And not only is she being forced into marriage, she has to compete for it. That's why she's like, it'd be better to just kill him, because she's not just being forced into marriage, but she has to compete to be forced into marriage. It's awful for her. So again, that's sort of the idea, the concept that we leave on, is Lilial being unhappy with the fact that she's being forced to compete for a marriage she doesn't even want. So yeah, great chapter, great set of 4 chapters. I love the end of the nest. I really like the nest in general. Even some of my opinions on things I didn't like, I think with time, I've even softened on it. I've even softened on like the Bomb and Joaquin stuff. I still think a lot about the Bomb and Joaquin stuff is bad, but while I think a lot of it is bad, I am totally willing to overlook a lot of that stuff that I think is bad, just for how good the Joaquin development is. And because I'm absolutely willing to just wait and be like, yeah, I think it's going somewhere in the future. I think that it's going somewhere. I think that it's all a part of Joaquin's journey as a character. So yeah, I'm totally fine with it. And I guess that's it. I'm trying to think before I end the video if there's anything else that I wanted to say, but I can't think of it right now. I guess I'll just throw it into the comments if there is. This was a long one, but very, very fun. I hope you all enjoyed it. I'm going to be doing more stuff. Of course, as always, like if you did like the video, comment down there too. Tell me what you thought of this chapter, my thoughts and everything on it. Subscribe for more Tower of God, much more on the channel. Follow on Twitter if you want. If you want a link to the Discord server, ask and I can give you a link. It's freedom for anyone. I'd love to talk to you all about Tower of God here or on Twitter or on Discord. I love talking with you all as best I can, obviously. I always try to do my best at answering everybody, unless for some reason I don't see the notification, or just I get like really way too impossibly busy. But even then I try to go back, even if it's like weeks later, and answer everyone. So yeah, love to talk to you all. If you want to help support the channel, to help me to continue to make videos, it is patreon.com/HakuOfTheTubes, or a link will be in the description. Or you can join as a channel member, and you can just hit join right below the video. I don't know if it works on mobile or not 100%. Some people have said it didn't, but I would be like, you know, I think it probably should at some point, or like somewhere, because like YouTube would be missing out on a lot given how like big YouTube is on mobile, you know. But yeah, you get my point. Huge thank you, though, to people who are already patrons and members who help me to continue making these videos. Massive thank you to Chosen Regulars, Etchy0, Evan Holly and Remorsefuls, Magical Girl, FR Nono, Cherryton Students, Elsa the Storyteller, and David Langstaff, and Slayer Candidate SG. Massive, huge, incredible thank you to all of them. And massive, huge, incredible thank you to all of you for sticking through this video, for watching, for being a part of the channel. Massive thank you to all of you, and I'll see you all next time.